Hey everyone, in this video I'm going to give you a quick comparison of the 10.2-inch iPad 7 that was released in 2019 versus the Samsung Galaxy Tab S6 Lite which was released in 2020. Unfortunately, I no longer have the iPad 7, so I can't show you much footage. I can only talk about it as much as I can remember. So I'm going to talk about the hardware, the display, the features, and overall performance. I do not game, so I will not be talking about gaming. Both tablets, they have excellent build quality, but in terms of design, the Samsung tablet definitely looks better with the thin bezels, and it's thinner at 7mm versus 7.5mm of the iPad 7, and this weighs 467 grams, slightly lighter compared to the 483 grams of the iPad 7. Display on the Samsung tablet is a 10.4-inch LCD panel. Colors look alright. They look somewhat similar to the iPad, but the iPad does have slightly better colors, but only if you compare the two tablets side by side. And with this particular unit that I have, for some reason there is glow here at the edge. This is the bottom of the tablet, so there is some glow here, but for the iPad, the backlighting, it's even throughout, so maybe the display quality of the iPad, it's better. The resolution for this is 2000 by 1200. The iPad 7 has higher resolution at 2160 by 1620. So what that means is things are going to appear sharper, like icons, the fonts, the text, all those will be sharper. So what I mean by that is sometimes when I am reading, sometimes I can still notice slight pixelation in the text, but it's not like a really big deal. I mean, this resolution 2000 by 1200, it's still pretty good for a tablet at this size. Right, this display actually has a laminated screen, so this means there is no gap between the glass surface and the LCD beneath. So when you're writing with the pen, it really looks like the line is appearing directly beneath the pen tip. Whereas on the iPad 7, there is no laminated display, so there is a gap between the glass and the LCD beneath. And also when you are writing or tapping on the display with the Apple Pencil, you may hear a hollow sound because of the gap. Let me show you the input lag of the Samsung tablet. Notice the gap between the line and the pen tip. Now this input lag is actually quite similar to the iPad. It's not an issue because when it comes to writing, I'm usually writing with short strokes, and when I'm drawing, I don't draw long sweeping lines, so it's not a problem. So for writing and drawing, definitely no issues at all. Now the US retail price is $349 for the Tab S6 Lite, and for the iPad 7, it's $329. Sometimes you can get it cheaper on Amazon for $229 if there are good promotions. But for this price, you get the S Pen included. For the Apple Pencil, it's an extra $99, so that's quite expensive. And the specs that I have for this tablet, it has 4 gigs of RAM and 64 gigs of storage. For the iPad, it's 3 gigs of RAM versus 32 gigs of storage. So 32 gigs of storage, I feel it's a bit limited. So if you want to go with 128 gigs of storage on the iPad, that tablet is $429, not including the Apple Pencil. So in terms of value for money, I think the Samsung S6 Lite definitely is more value for money. And there is a micro SD card slot, so if you want to expand your storage, you can do so. One thing I really like about the micro SD card is if you want to upgrade to another Android tablet in the future, you can continue to use the SD card. When it comes to productivity work, like when you are typing or writing, I feel that the 4:3 aspect ratio of the iPad, it's more suited for productivity tasks. With the 5:3 aspect ratio of the Samsung tablet, you can see this virtual keyboard, it already takes up more than half of the whole display. So with the iPad, with that aspect ratio, you get to see more of your content and the keyboard takes up less space. So this display, the Samsung display, the wider aspect ratio, this is actually better for video consumption, for media consumption. So when you watch a YouTube video, for example, you get very tiny bars at the top and bottom, but for the iPad you get much thicker bars. And also the speakers on the Samsung, they are stereo. There is one speaker on the left side and one on the right side, and the audio quality is actually quite good. There is a headphone jack as well. The iPad 7 also has the 3.5mm audio jack. For the speakers, the iPad only has speakers at the bottom of the tablet, so you're not going to get the true left and right stereo effect. Alright, let's talk about overall performance. So when it comes to web browsing, I feel like sometimes when I'm scrolling there is this slight choppiness. I feel that the iPad browsing and overall experience is just a bit more smoother compared to the Samsung tablet. I'm not sure if it's because of the processor. Anyway, for the iPad 7, it still uses the Apple A10 Fusion chip from a few years ago. The processor, the chip inside here, this is the Exynos 9611. And even though this has more RAM, sometimes when I am switching around the tabs, I can feel that delay. So for example, when I'm tapping here, you can see that it doesn't switch instantly. So in terms of overall performance, I definitely would say that iPad has the edge there. And not just when it comes to web browsing, when it comes to changing the orientation of the tablet. So for example, now it's in landscape format. If I change it to portrait, see how much time it takes. It takes about 1 second or so. Sometimes it can be even longer. Yep. So on the iPad, the orientation changes very quickly, but here it's slow. Even my 2-year-old phone can change orientation much faster. And also face unlock here, it doesn't work that effectively, so I'm actually still using the pin unlock, and there is no fingerprint sensor on this tablet, front or back, so I have to go with the pin unlock, which is actually faster compared to the ineffective face unlock. On the iPad 7, they have the fingerprint sensor that's 100% perfect. When it comes to variety and quality of apps from Android versus iOS, a few years ago, I think the quality of Android apps, they are not like as good compared to iOS. But nowadays, when I look at the apps, when I use them, I would say they are actually pretty good. So if you want to go with Android, I don't think you are missing out at all. I mean, there are a lot of fantastic writing apps that perform equally as well compared to those on the iPad. And for drawing apps, on the iPad, I really like to use Procreate because the user interface, it is just so intuitive. For the Android tablet, there are also pretty good drawing apps. So the one that I really enjoy nowadays, it's called Concepts. You see that straight stroke over there? So with Android OS, there are the 3 navigation buttons that used to be physical buttons. So if you want to call up those navigation buttons, you have to swipe from the bottom of the display. And sometimes when you are swiping up while you are drawing something, it's going to draw something at the bottom instead of swiping up the navigation button. So that's something to take note of. For the iPad, you can just press the home button to go to the home screen. You're not going to be dealing with such things. So yesterday I was drawing my daughter with the S Pen, and I mean, I really enjoy drawing with the S Pen on this tablet for the past few days. Overall drawing performance, it's very smooth. Let me show you some sketches. The navigation, zoom, pan, rotate, it's also quite smooth. However, when the scene gets more complex, when there are more textures, you can start to feel the delay. It's not as responsive when it comes to zooming and panning. For the iPad, I feel that it's still a bit smoother, but not like this is a terrible experience or what. I mean, for the past few days, I have been drawing my kid, and I really enjoyed drawing on this tablet. It's a good experience. Just like the Apple Pencil, which has pressure and tilt sensitivity, the S Pen also has pressure and tilt sensitivity, and it works quite well. It's very smooth here. Let me show you tilt. So now the pen is vertical, and now I have tilt. However, the transition from thin to the broad strokes when the pen is tilted, it's not as smooth compared to the Apple Pencil. And here you see some line breaks. When you're drawing like this, it's fine. When you tilt the pen at certain angles, you can see the plastic part actually touches the screen and leaves the pen tip up the surface. That's why you have the line breaks. Now this nib here, this is considered medium to soft nib, and it's quite slippery on the glass surface. The Apple Pencil has a hard tip, and it's also quite slippery on the glass surface. In terms of the user experience of the Apple Pencil versus the Samsung S Pen, I'm not sure if I can say that Apple Pencil is better. All I can say is the Apple Pencil, the user experience is definitely different compared to the Samsung Pen. And by the way, palm rejection, it works almost flawlessly on the iPad, but for the Android tablet, for this tablet with the S Pen, sometimes I still get the stray strokes as my hand touches the screen. As I rest my palm on the screen when I'm drawing, sometimes I still get that those stray strokes. See, now I have two. If you really want to do away or avoid the stray strokes, you can maybe wear an artist glove. So that would involve you having to buy and wear the artist glove. But for the Apple Pencil, you don't need all that because palm rejection, it's flawless. Alright, to conclude, in terms of value for money, I would definitely say that the Samsung Tab S6 Lite, it provides more value for money because for US $349, you get more RAM, you get more storage, you get the micro SD card slot, you get the S Pen that's included. This is not powered by battery, so you don't have to charge it. With the Apple Pencil, I find that the battery, it deteriorates after a year or two. That's the problem with small batteries, they deteriorate fast. And speaking of battery life, both tablets, they have excellent battery life. So if you're just checking emails, doing web browsing, you can easily get 9 to 10 hours. If you're drawing, and depending on the auto brightness, sometimes you can get maybe 6 to 8 hours, but that really depends on what you are doing and also the brightness of your environment. In short, what I can say is battery life for both tablets, excellent. So in my opinion, the S6 Lite, it's a better deal. The only downsides here is for, at least with this unit, I have the glow at the bottom of the tablet. And the overall performance, it's not as smooth compared to the iPad, but it's not like it's lagging, it's just not as smooth. Ultimately, if you want to go with Android versus iPad, I don't think you are missing out on anything at all. Alright, so let me know in the comment section below if you have any questions. Thanks for watching. I hope this video is helpful. See you in the next video. Bye.